Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today at Lease Cake Live. My name is Michelle Benjamin, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Lease Cake. We're so happy you could take time out of your day to join us. And before we jump into the presentation, I'll give a little introduction while people are trickling in. Who is Lease Cake? In case you're not familiar, we're a lease and location management platform for franchisees and franchisors, including Jersey Mike's, as you'll hear later in the presentation. But this is not a sales pitch because Lease Cake Live is a series that's meant to be educational and helpful. So we're happy to tell you more about our platform another time if you'd like to hear about it. But today we are here to bring stories from our customers to and industry experts to share their life stories and ideas and give advice to everyone else across the industry, including yourself. So before I pass it over to Taj to introduce our speaker, a few housekeeping items. Yes, we are recording this and we'll be sharing the recording out with everyone after the session. And we definitely want to keep this interactive. So we encourage your questions. If you just want to send those over in the Q&A chat box, we'll keep an eye out on them throughout the presentation and definitely leave time at the end as well. But don't be shy. And with that, I will pass it over to our moderator, who you may already know if you've joined any of our previous Lease Cake Live sessions. This is Lease Cake's founder, Taj Adav. Taj, take it away.
Michelle, thank you. What a kind introduction. We're super excited. As you probably know from our prior webinars, we are not at our Cake quarters in Winter Park, Florida. We happen to bring our logo along with us. I'm in Denver. It's 1,800 miles away from Winter Park, meeting with customers and partners and advisors. But it's really exciting to wherever we are, our customer stories need to be told. So today's session is from passion to private equity, scaling up Jersey Mike's success story. And it's especially salient because of Blackstone's $8 billion acquisition recently. Nothing's changed. We're going to touch on very high level the vision and the future plans for an incredibly powerful sub sandwich brand. And like I said, like Michelle said, let's keep it interactive. Have some questions come in at us through the Q&A chat. And from there, let's just jump in. It's an honor to introduce the Chief Operating Officer of Jersey Mike's, who came up through the system wearing the apron, and he'll tell his story for sure. But he has a distinction of working at the original Mike's subs in Point Pleasant, and I don't say New Jersey. I guess got to say Jersey. Is that right? And during high school, and we'll have him tell his story and what makes the Jersey Mike system special. So welcome, Mike Manzo.
Thank you for having me, and thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to listen to what I have to say. But I like to tell you just a quick background of myself. I was still in high school. I was a sophomore going into my junior year, and there was a job opening at Mike Subs, and this is 1978 area. My two older brothers worked for Peter Cancro, and I started making subs at the age of 15, let's say. And that was 1978. Now, I don't know if you all know it, but Peter Cancro, who just sold 90% of the company to Blackstone, he was 17 years old. He was still in high school, and the store became for sale. So his family didn't have any equity. So he went to his former football coach, which happened to be the local banker, and it was Rod Smith, the banker, who was able to get Peter the loan for $125,000 to a 17-year-old kid still in high school, and it's a great American success story. Not that it just sold, but it was a success story for a young kid just working hard, opening up some stores. It was a success story even at store one. But now you just multiply it by 3,100 stores, it's a little bit more successful. But and that's how the business started. And we came along in the 70s, and it was just a bunch of guys from the neighborhood making subs, and it was a bunch of friends making subs. And back then in Point Pleasant, which is right there on the Jersey Shore, you had a lot of influence from the New Yorkers coming down to use our beaches and the folks coming in from Philly. It was a seasonal concept. And during the winter time, you would cater to all the locals. So that was the business side of it. But through the years, you would hear so many people come in and say, wow, you should open a store in this city or this state or bring it overseas, etc. So that's when Peter started thinking about expanding. Well, I went into the United States Marine Corps after high school from 1981 to 85. When I came out in 1985, I asked Peter for my part-time job back, and 2 months later, I started managing the store. 1986, we started franchising. That's when we put the word Jersey in front of Mike Subs. So Jersey Mike's was born in 1986, 1987 year. And then we started opening stores. So that was the early beginning. And I remember standing in front of the original store, and Peter had a yellow pad out, and he said, "What do you think about a name?" And we had 4 different options. One was Subs from New Jersey, or New Jersey Mike Subs, or Point Subs. And then he circled Jersey Mike's, and that was pretty cool. So when we started franchising, a company called Francorp came along and they interviewed us, and we went out to Chicago and did the paperwork. And when he wrote up his synopsis, he said, Jersey Mike's, formerly known as Mike Subs, has terrible visibility. Their location, no visibility, there's no parking, and there's no walk-up business. How they do the business they do is because of the food they serve. And that we stayed true to that sentence to this day. So through all the recessions, through the pandemic, through growth, we didn't change the quality or the quantity of the sandwich. You know, so that's one of the probably one of the most proudest points, that we didn't cut the corners. We tried a lot of things, like we failed on pizza, we failed on toasted subs, we failed on sauces. We had a lot of failures along the way, but it's been one heck of a ride. So
Wow.
So basically, I started as a part-time kid, and I ended up as a COO.
That's incredible. And I love the fact that you came back from the Marines, asked for your part-time job back. But I got to imagine that the Marine Corps training kind of gave you a little bit of an edge, right? Organization, structure, process, because you guys are running a mini factory.
Yeah. So think about, you just came out of the Marine Corps, you're 21 years old, 22, and you're managing your friends that maybe went to college or didn't go to college, and now you're in charge of them. You have the maturity of, the Marine Corps, which you're responsible for lives, because you're a squad leader or platoon leader, you're responsible for lives, versus you're responsible for labor costs or food costs. There's a little difference there. And I think the maturity from the Marine Corps helped me establish some of the processes that we have in place. A very methodical growth here. Through the years, we have focused on something very simple called the UP factor, unit profitability. Unit profitability starts with lease negotiations and understanding the inbound cost, understanding the estimated sales. And we've been doing that since 1995. So it's very methodical. It's a little more automated these days. Lease Cake, give you a shout out. You're helping us manage all the location management and all the platforms you have. That's helping us greatly. But we had a certain benchmark, and if it was to exceed that benchmark, if something was out, you would need to get 2 signatures to move forward. That was kind of like a military thing I brought in. And developing stores from franchise sales to real estate, from franchise sales, real estate, design, operations, training, that was all basically a military step-by-step process. Yeah, so the military played an important part.
So there was a point in time you got up to 35 locations, then there was growth, and then you came back. Tell everyone a little bit about that.
You want to talk about the dark times? We'll talk about the dark times.
Yeah, good times and bad times. We've got to talk about the dark times.
All right, let's go dark. Now, let's put ourselves back in 1990, 1991. Some of you may not remember that recession. That recession, the banks were failing at an alarming rate. We didn't have the checks and balances that you have today. You could have $5 in a bank and you couldn't borrow 50 cents. It was just bizarre what was going on. It was backed by a lot of bad real estate, and people were losing their homes and etc. Well, we almost lost our company. Well, actually, we did, in the sense of Peter had to let go of his entire staff. The only folks that were left were the franchisees in these 35 stores, some of our store managers. I decided to leave. The other folks decided to leave. There just wasn't enough payroll to pay everybody. So Peter would run the company. And when I was asked to come back in the late 1995, I sat down at my desk and there was 35 stores open. And when I left, there was 35 stores open. So I turned to Peter and said, "What have you been doing for 4 years?" And he said, "Just surviving." And then we just got back together. During those dark years, of course, you couldn't, employment was tough. I was raising our child on part-time basis, part-time dollars, and you scratch and you just claw your way through life, and you find out who you are as a person, as a husband, as a father, etc. And those were real formative years. And I knew I can grind it out. But when I came back, I knew that we had the right product. I knew we had the right leadership. Peter's a great leader. And I knew we had the right systems, or we could have had the right systems. One thing we didn't have was money. And money is pretty important in this factor. So 1995, 96, we started making a little money. Franchise fees were coming in, and life started turning around, and we started private labeling our product. We started beverage contracts, vendor alliances and vendor partnerships are very important to us. Food distribution was important to us, so we designed all those processes back in the late 90s. But I tell you, if we didn't go through the early 90s, I don't know if we would have been, so true to ourselves today, because we understood what it felt like to almost lose a company.
Yeah. It definitely is a wake-up call, but it's a test of your mettle, right? Either you win or you learn. And it sounds like you all learned a great deal. So from 35 locations to 300, you've got a lot of hometown heroes. A lot of part-timers became full-time. When I say that, I think a lot of single unit operators. Is that right?
Yeah, in the beginning, we were known as the non-chain chain. We had all mom and pop operators. We would sell franchises to people that want to make sandwiches, like they wanted to wear the blue apron, and that was very important to us. It took training a long time to train these folks. It took a lot of mentoring to teach these folks how to run restaurants. So our growth in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was slow, it was very methodical. It was maybe 20 stores a year. And then I think the chart starts, I have a chart somewhere, it starts in 1998, we had 141 stores. And then we opened, I think, 30 stores that year, which seems like, well, it's a 20% increase from 141. So it was, that 20%, that was, we needed more. We needed more employees, we needed more operations. So we started growing, and then you had the .com bust in the early 2000s. We had a slowdown growth then. At that moment, from 2003 to 2005, I think we had some smaller growth, nothing major. But that's when we stopped franchising. We went back to the operations team. We cleaned up operations. We doubled the amount of training time. And we took the initial store marketing program in-house. So we ran it ourselves, and then we handed it over to the franchisees. So there's a lot of learnings there. And every 4 or 5 years, we would slow down growth just to recalibrate. And that was one of those years. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the theme of slow down in order to speed up.
Yeah. You know, when you, Taj, when you're looking at these numbers and you're looking at our competitors through the years, you see Subway doing their thing. I mean, they're just growing. And then you had the Jimmy John's and you had the Firehouse Subs, and around here, our mentality was focus on our four walls. You can't outmarket Subway. You can't do what everyone else is doing. Just focus on the customer in front of you. And we put more money into our training department because we always want to be a training company. And for the last 20 years or so, we always want to teach the reason why we're doing things. Not because we told you to do it, not because you're a franchisee, but here's the reason why you're doing certain things. So that was very important to us. It was tremendous. It was so slow. It was watching paint dry when you see all your competitors outperform yourself. And then we just had to stay true to who we were.
That's incredible discipline. Because what is it? I mean, Subway's got, I don't know, tens of thousands of locations. You guys have persevered. You mentioned the up factor, unit
Yes.
profitability. I was just at your national conference. It was fantastic seeing, all of the entire system there, learning and listening and kind of hearing everything that you're talking about. It seems so basic for franchisors to focus on the franchisee's success at the unit profitability level, as opposed to just selling, hit your opening date, write royalty checks. What was it? Is it just Peter's ethos? Was it your ethos to say we can't succeed unless our franchisees succeed?
Well, we learned from our mistakes. And I tell you, in the early days, we opened for too much. We didn't have the sales, and we had to financially help that franchisee stay afloat. We realized we're putting a lot of effort into this, putting a lot of money into it because our philosophy here is leave no store behind. So whatever we could do to help out that franchisee, maybe operate the store for a month for them, maybe do the marketing again for them, or maybe put marketing dollars into the area for them. Whatever we could do to keep them afloat. Well, we realize that costs a lot of money and effort, and it distracts you from what you're supposed to be doing. So we learned from those type of mistakes. So,
And you also gave some franchisees a bit of an off-ramp, right? As they were committed to hit their opening dates. Talk about that, making sure that they're successful, but giving them a potential out. I think that's fascinating.
So there was a theory around here of selling multiple units to a single franchisee. Now, where we came from, that was unheard of because it was all mom and pop operators. So we started selling 3 and 5 and 10 unit agreements. Well, we realized that perhaps they could open up 2 or 3 stores, but the last 2 or 3, they weren't capable of opening. Or the last 6 of a 10 unit deal, they weren't capable of opening. So we then would call them, meet them in person and say, we understand that financially you can't do it. You don't have enough people. So we'll rebate you your entire fee back to your corporation, so you're still whole. We didn't want that to become an income generating, revenue generating area for us. We want to be fair to the franchisee because perhaps we oversold them, or perhaps they couldn't find the real estate because we didn't do a good enough job. But we thought it was good business sense to make them whole for that franchise agreement. So we never kept the franchise fees. We rebated them back.
There's a lot of goodwill that you can generate long term from having that, I guess, calm and relaxed and tacit acceptance, kind of that off ramp. Certainly, I think you can win a lot of mind share down the road when you're ready to scale up, right?
Yeah, and just well, you establish trust, and along with that is the integrity. And just a year ago, we went around the system, and we spoke to some franchisees, and they said, you know what, I'm not ready to grow. I'll take my fee back, and I understand the amount of area I'm giving up, but I would hate to hold it back from growing the company. So we do that. back in the day, we would have those meetings 4 times a year and talk about every franchisee, meet with every franchisee, just to make sure they were healthy.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you have visibility into their profit and loss statement, and you could educate them on how to make more money or how to increase top line sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's a question in from Hunter who asked what's the difference between scaling from sub 100 to 100 plus?
Thanks, Hunter, for that question. I read something about scaling, and it said if you're in franchising, you get to 50 units, you probably did it working 24 hours a day and just grinding it out. If you get up to 100 units and you're still financially sound, congratulations, you're on a good road. By 200 units, if you didn't sell out or you don't have a legal problem, you could probably be successful, get to 500. So with that philosophy, there's a lot of things you can't control. What we can control, we made sure we dominated that. We could dominate the training, we could dominate the site selection, the 4 walls marketing, all of that. So many things you can't control that people focus on. And I believe it's a waste of time, but I could certainly control the people I put behind the counter. So if you focus on unit profitability, and you don't always have to race the clock. Investors like to see the clock, the investors like to see the return, but there's also a diminishing return if you go too fast. Everybody wore the blue apron in our staff here. I think I came out of the stores around, I think it was store 150 or 175. That's when I stopped wearing the apron full time. But you would wear the apron for the morning, and after the lunch rush, you would get back to the office and do the paperwork after 2 o'clock or so, and then half day Saturday. But it's a grind, and I could tell you it's well worth it, not only for you personally, but think about all the lives that you're responsible for putting them into the business. And you're responsible for all the part-timers behind the counter that are believing in your brand, that they want to work there. So I don't know if I answered your question, except grind it out and do the right thing.
Yeah. For the leadership team, you have a relatively flat organization, right, Mike?
Yes, and can we explain what that means?
Well, why don't you explain it? Because I'm sure you probably have a unique approach to what a flat organization is.
Some people would view the company as, gosh, it's a flat organization, nobody's in charge, which is entirely not true. The tenure around, I've been here 40 years. Our training department has been here. We have 3 guys. One's 40 years, the other one's 35 years. Everybody understands the game plan. The chief developing officer started as a part-time kid. He ran areas of the country. His name is Brian Summers. He's known in our industry when you go to trade shows. He's been with us 22 years. But he and I worked together behind the counter. And I taught him everything I knew because Peter taught me everything he knew, and now Brian is teaching everybody. So it's the trickle effect. The chief marketing officer has been with us since the 90s. So everybody understands the game plan. We all understand expectations that we hold for each other. So that's why we're pretty much flat.
Yeah. And the development of, you have a unique name for the playbook that you all created, which is kind of the operating manual, it's the execution and the training and the opening date. Touch on that.
That's called the autopilot. Created in 1996, let's say. And when we started opening a store here in South Jersey, I went down to the location, I did a construction visit, and I started writing things down. And then I had another construction visit in Ohio, and I'm like, well, why are we duplicating all this work? So we created this manual that went day by day during construction, and each franchisee would have to touch base with us, or we call them weekly, to go through the processes of opening a store, and that starts 12 weeks before the projected opening day. So it would clearly cover your training. It takes about 12 weeks to train somebody for Jersey Mike's to fully manage a store. Go through the marketing plan, the construction, the equipment, the installation of all the different pieces of equipment. So we call it the autopilot. If you have only one store, or if you're opening up store number 20, you still go through that same process. And you spend a lot of time with the marketing department, and you spend a lot of time with operations, so we could figure out your people plan. You know, so who's going to be behind the counter wearing a blue apron is very important to us. We spend a lot of time on that.
Got it.
So in our capitalization plan per store, that unit profitability, right now it's costing about $550,000 to open up a Jersey Mike's. And I think, Hunter, if I can get back to your question, we have a total turnkey number when we open a store, and that includes your franchise fee, your architects, your construction, but also there's about $20,000 or $25,000 in that budget for training. So you're training 3 people for X amount of time. It covers your lease costs and 30 days of marketing. It covers your first 2 weeks of food, which would be about $18,000, but all of that is in the capitalization plan. So if the store costs $550,000 to open, you take 20% of that, that would be the cash that the franchisee would put up, and then the other would be what he would borrow from the bank. So we go with the 20-80 rule when we're opening the stores. And that is well, back in the day, it was a couple pieces of paper and everybody signed off on it to make sure that unit profitability, that they weren't open up for $750,000, they're opening up for $550,000.
Yeah.
That you get out of work. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. So we talked about getting poised for growth, getting your unit level profitability as a key focus. Talk about training. So many people, I mean, such a respected high growth brand that you all have built. And many people refer to your company as Jersey Mike's is a training company. And I know you just touched on it, but I think there's a lot more to unpack, making certain that those 3 people go through different levels of certification. And it's almost like you're grooming new leaders as they grow. Expand on that if you could.
We've had very experienced franchisees come from other concepts. This one fellow came from Domino's Pizza, 20-year veteran of Domino's Pizza, and Domino's, they produce a lot of pies, and everything's quick in Domino's. And this is when they had their own delivery system and not so much third party. And he said, how can it take 12 weeks to learn how to make a sub? I mean, it's onions, lettuce, and tomatoes. How hard can it be? Well, when he opened his store, his quote was, I didn't do enough training for the amount of the volume. And we're standing 3 feet away from the customer. And then nowadays you have the third party integration, and you have the telephone ringing, you have X amount of staff, you have distribution problems, etc. You have to understand how to handle all that, because you know what, the person that's standing 3 feet on the other side of the counter really doesn't care if Cisco is on time or not. You know, they want their sandwich in a certain amount of time. It has to be perfect, because you are charging a certain amount of money for that service and that quality. So that takes a lot of training hours.
Wow.
On top of all that, what I would really love to talk about here is a program that we call, I went from part-time to owner. And we have a conference room that's dedicated to the portraits of over 100, let's call them kids, 100 employees, young folks that start as a part-time employee, work their way up to management and maybe a district manager, and then the franchisee believed in them, and they gave them the rights to own and operate a store. Maybe they gave them the funding. Maybe we gave them the funding. Peter does that from time to time. It started many years ago. It's called the STAY program. sweat, tears, and years. We want you to stay with our brand. We don't want you to go to our competitor just because of $1 an hour. We want you to have a career wearing a blue apron. So we came up with that program. We also came up with a program called Rod Smith program. That was a former football coach, the banker, that gave Peter an opportunity. So Peter wants to give an opportunity to dedicated employees that have been with the system for a long time. So we have well over 100 people that start as a part-time employee, and they went through the ranks, and now they're franchisees, they're entrepreneurs, they're living the American dream.
Mm.
So yeah.
And today you have what, around 650-ish franchisees, is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And I think of all of your franchisees, there's still the 300 hometown heroes that have one location. Is that right?
Yeah, yes. We have close to I think it's 40% are single unit operators.
Fantastic.
And they love it. And then when they move up to the second store, they're comfortable with that because they're making a good living. They're very happy with their lifestyle. They're watching their kids grow up. Their kids are employed, and their friends are employed at the store.
Yeah.
It's, as we all know, it's difficult to run any business these days, let alone restaurants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that acronym.
I have a great little story. I'm going to try and get through it without getting emotional.
Okay.
But I'm in Chicago, and I see Esteban, and he pats me on the back, and I said, "Hey, I love your story. I tell it all the time." And here's the story. Esteban goes into a store in Chicago and asks for a job, and the franchisee says, I start at $12 an hour, and then if you're confident, you go to 14 and 16, and I'll give you some hours. He said, well, I'm from the restaurant industry. I know how to cook. And he said, my system is you start at $12 an hour, you move to 14, very systematic. And Esteban said, I'm sorry, I have a family. I'm trying to help out my parents, and thank you anyway. A few months later, he came back, met with Jim again, and Jim said, I started at $12 an hour, moved to 14 to 16. And he said, nah. He came back a couple of weeks later, he said, Jim, I'll take the job because I want to prove to you I can do this. And I love your food. So he started working, started at $12 an hour, moved up to 14 and went up to 16. 8 years later, he calls his mom. He says, Mom, when you come down to the store, and I'll make you lunch. So Mom came down. This is before the store is open. It's about 10:30 in the morning. And he made 3 sandwiches. Esteban made 3 sandwiches, slid them down. And his mom said, oh, what, 3 sandwiches? He said, yes, Mom. Here's the one. That's your sandwich. Here's Dad's sandwich. Now, Dad had passed previously. He's passed away. And here's my sandwich. I just want to let you know, Mom, that the owner of the store just made you your lunch. And, very emotional. And here's a kid that now he has a house. His mom lives with him, his sister. He brought the family in, and he has, let's call it the American dream. But, capitalism works. And he worked very hard for that ownership. And he was at the national meeting. As a matter of fact, one of his teams qualified for the fastest sub. We call it the G13, a Johnny 13 contest, and they were on stage making the fastest sub.
That's super cool. You are a job creation engine. I mean, you just told the story about Esteban. What's the whole employee count? Just kind of round numbers, Mike.
3,100 stores times 20 employees. So 60.
Wow.
60. Wow. And we're showing them, as all of you are showing them, that if you're in the restaurant industry, it could be a great way of life. It could be a great way to support your family. And we need hospitality in this country. We need people to serve others. And if you're willing to serve, you're willing to smile and create a lifestyle, it's here. It's here for the taking.
Sure. I believe that everyone growing up with high school, college should work in the restaurant industry. It teaches you so many skills, how to read the audience, how to manage, these spikes in lunchtime crowds and afternoon crowds, teamwork, collaboration, and then following the rules, right? You all are making the rules, but just the focus on execution of your slicer and your the juice.
Yeah,
Talk about those three steps, because I think that's very cool. How you really get the process nailed, and the training is never long enough, but you sounds like you got it figured out.
well, Mike Subs it was started in 1956, and it was the assembly line process.
Yeah.
You would go to the slicer, over to the sandwich. They back in the day, they call it dressed it. They dress it, we sprinkle it, and you'd have the register right next to it. So we haven't changed anything. That assembly line process works, and it's the repetitions on the slicer, understanding the thickness of the meats and understanding the flow. You're truly the quarterback of the store. Just like back in the kitchen, there's an expediter, telling the cooks what steak to start grilling and what food has to be served at what time. Our quarterback is the person on a slicer. So along with the hot subs, the grilling is about 40% of our business, which is a different dynamic in itself. Back in the day when I had first started, we just introduced cheesesteaks, and we had sausage Parmesan sandwiches and meatball Parmesan, but they were maybe 5% of the business, and you were just on a slicer all day long. Now you move over to the hot subs, and you're grilling onions and peppers and portobello mushrooms all day. So it's pretty fascinating how that has changed.
Mm-hmm. There was a point in time where the leadership team said, let's invest in equipment across the board, and it was funded at the franchisor level. What specific piece of equipment, and around what time, and when, why? That was a question that just came in.
Yeah, we've done this 2 times, but let's talk about the latest time we did. It was right during the pandemic. We had a national conference in, I think, 2019, and we said that we're going to retrofit all the stores, and in order to do it in a timely manner, the franchisor will pay for everybody's renovations, retrofits. So we're going to change out some equipment, change out the menu board, change out the decor, paint all the stores, put up new wall tile, new furniture, and each store costs anywhere between $85,000 to $100,000. And we did that. It was a $200 million investment from the company, but there were a couple things happened. Number one, you had developed more trust with the franchisee, more integrity, transparency. We got the job done in a very quick timeline. Important that the franchisees didn't have to go out and get another loan on their business. So this is just another way of us supporting. We knew we were going to get a jump in sales after you renovate a store. We controlled the marketing. We controlled the free sub cards. So we made sure that the customers came back to the stores, and that was well received. As the best $200 million investment we could have put forth. Sales went up X amount. And then what happened was we were getting ready for the pandemic, which we didn't realize we were getting ready for it because our technology had to be enhanced. So we're the first concept to be fully integrated with Uber Eats and DoorDash so that it would eliminate the little iPads behind the counters. So all the information went right to our POS system, and it would develop a ticket for us to make the product. And the ticket was designed that it was printed 2 times, one for the hot subs and one for the cold subs, so the ticket would get split. But that technology was so advanced back then that it helped us get through the pandemic. Let's see, we probably could have done curbside delivery with that. We couldn't have did any type of marketing unless we had that fully integrated system.
And as you have these multi-unit operators, I mean, I gotta believe that you talk about building trust and loyalty. That type of $200 million investment isn't lost on the entire system. Yet there's probably some multi-unit operators that have other concepts. To what extent do they, what's the split, if you will, if you can share anything, other concept operators that concern you, or do you embrace it?
Gotta go back to Hunter's question. Yeah, you know what you do so well. Just keep doing what you're doing, and if we could get a great operator from another concept, let's bring them on board, bring her on board. Who's going to be wearing the apron? Because they're going to bring their knowledge. They're going to bring some other experience. We try not to change who we were, but we have plenty of multi-concept, multi-unit operators here. When we go to the multi-unit conference and restaurant leadership, which is coming up, we'll sell some more franchises, no doubt. But back in the day, getting up to like 50 stores, that was like, no way. Can you bring somebody in from the outside? They're going to ruin our brand. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just trying to control. Maybe we were just trying to survive. But it came through. I learned quite a bit from folks from outside our concept.
Wow. You've been at the brand for probably like close to 50 years, I'd say, right?
Come on now. I just turned 62. Right? We just turned 62. So no, give me 40 years. I'll be happy with 40.
40, then there you go. No, that's cool. Because of the national conference, all the news that you shared, all the love, you only do that twice a year, right?
Every other year, yes. Every other year.
Or every other year. I messed up there. So with every other year, if you were to do this again 2 years from now, well, I know you're going to do this 2 years from now. What's the story going to look like in terms of unit count, or where are you guys headed? You got the 3,100 locations now.
Yeah. So with Blackstone, this whole thing's been terrific. It's going to unfold as one of the greatest deals ever, because they believe in us. We believe in them. They're allowing us to run our company. There are some synergies with Tropical Smoothie Cafe that we're working on, and some other concepts, but we're on the phone with them again yesterday, just going through some things. And from the moment I had my first meeting with them back many months ago, we don't want to run your business. That's not why we bought you. We want you to continue doing what you're doing, but if you need help, and obviously it's they're gonna fuel some areas that we may need help in. I think that it comes at a great time in everybody's professional career to accelerate this business. We're doing very well in Canada. A lot of hard work in Canada. We've spent a lot of money, a lot of labor hours up in Canada. As a matter of fact, one of the young guys that have been helping us develop Canada, he just got married. We're going to move his wedding to Toronto. He's spending so much time there. But so last 4 years, we've been averaging 300 new units a year. This year, we're looking at another 300. Next year, maybe another 325, but I don't think it jumps to 600 immediately. We have a lot of processes in place, and we have to worry about unit profitability. I think if we just, we're ranked number 2 in Entrepreneur Magazine again this year. Taco Bell's a great company that's been up there number 1 for many years. We're not going to chase the numbers, but we're going to chase more efficiencies. I think this is going to open up the international markets for us quicker than we had anticipated. And I think for the company, it gives us another shot of enthusiasm, keep running hard with the company. We have a lot of unfinished business. We have 3,100. We'll finish the year with about 3,200 or 3,300 stores. We will. We would love to put maybe 7,500 stores in the U.S. You add some non-trads to that, the number could go close to 10,000. But you know, and everybody that's listening, we never had a 5-year plan to say these are the number of stores we want. We had an 18-month plan and said this is what we can do, this is what we can control, and we have to be great at unit profitability. So every 18 months we would look at it. But back to that military thing, we would meet every Monday morning at 9 o'clock and go through every franchisee that had a franchise fee in. If it was an idle franchise fee or if it was under construction, we would talk about every franchisee and have about 10 people around the table understanding the status of that franchisee and how to move them forward. So those meetings have become very large now. Some of it's automated, but it gets back to that unit profitability.
Yeah. So every Monday, if you've got a growth plan of say roughly 300 per year, you're talking about spending probably hours, I imagine, in that meeting going through active construction.
Yeah. And everything's active. There's the pre-opening coordinating teams are very experienced. They know what to look out for. We have 2 full-time architects on staff, so we understand, you know, the areas that may slow growth down. So we focus on that. I think it's just a matter of adding more people to the operations team out in the field to keep these stores, you know, open and on time.
Yeah. Well, it's timed well with what you just said. There's a question that just came across. How are you going to multiply yourself, Mike? I mean, you're the COO. I mean, there's only so much time in the day to continue to manage not just the growth, but the operations of 3,100, soon to be 3,400 locations. What's your plan?
Well, the old adage, surround yourself with smart people, surround yourself with people that are going to get the job done. I think Peter has done that. I know we all have done it. I have Brian Summers, 22 years. He can't go anywhere. He has young kids, so we can get another 10 years out of him, I think. You start looking at your roster, and even though these folks have 25 or 30 years, they're still young in age, and they have some fire in the belly. Chief supply chain officer Dan Capella, he was 30 years with Smithfield, and now he's 6 years with us, running a great supply chain. We manage over $1 billion worth of food and paper, food and non-food items. I think the number might be $1.2 billion. But we have a good staff there, and everybody that came through the system. So I think we just have to keep doing what we do, focus on the next 12 to 18 months and keep putting the numbers on the board. I say this, there's a lot of people in this company that could take my place because they've been around for so long and they all have passion. And I love the title of this, From Passion to Private Equity. We all have passion for the brand, passion for Peter. So now we have passion for Blackstone.
I love it. And that makes a ton of sense. I was going to talk about replacing yourself because you touched on this. I think most successful organizations are led by leaders who look to replace themselves to make room for those that are coming up and to open themselves up for new opportunities, whether it's strategic growth, whether it's other ways that they can add value.
Yeah. My door is closed for the Zoom call, but my door is never closed. And I just had 2 young operations guys that come in, and we spoke for 30 minutes. They just opened a store down in Maryland, and it went well, but it wasn't smooth. And we're trying to figure out why was it clunky.
Yeah.
And here we are, we're just shooting the breeze, and they want to hear about my opinion. And so I always keep myself always accessible. But you know, when you sit back and you talk about the responsibilities you have to your entire organization, to your franchisees, you probably, I know I probably approved most of the franchisees that are wearing the aprons right now. I believe we have, you know, we have responsibility to make sure they're successful. They put $550,000 in the middle of the table and say, I'm betting on your brand. And I know I did a pretty good job of selling. Now we have to perform. And we take that very seriously.
Wow, good deal. Question came in from Patty King at Kroll. 70% of our customers are PE backed, majority or minority or public. And related to this, I think the question is around, there's a lot of PE backed multi-unit franchisees. Do you see that as a good sign? Is there a trend that Blackstone is picking up on? How does that, you know, the heavily backed PE groups that want to be a part of your brand, you know, speak to that?
Yeah, those conversations are becoming more, I don't want to say prevalent, but we didn't have this a few years back. But our franchisees are growing at such a rate that they're valuable. And regardless of the private equity, we keep talking about who's wearing the apron, because everybody's interested in one item, and that's making money. And you have to make sure that people wearing a blue apron are paid extremely well. They're taken care of. They may have an equity position in it for themselves, keep some profits at the store level, and then everybody will be happy. If you treat them as an owner, they're going to give you the returns you're looking for. And that's, we just had a conversation last week about that very point. And there's going to be some transactions from time to time, but we're going to hold fast to our people plan. And are they certified operators for Jersey Mike's? You have to be a certified operator to run Jersey Mike's.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Patty, for that question. There's another question as it relates to the current status of the market, economic conditions. There's a lot of institutions that are holding back cash, sense of CPI expectations. This is Amar that is asking this question. What's your perspective on the topic of tightening of credit, tightening of cash, or has it impacted you at all, given Blackstone?
No, it hasn't impacted at all. I'm sure it will when we get further into the relationship. And coming off of a privately held company, a company held by Peter Kanker, which our philosophy around here was you spend money as if it was your own company. And you don't have to, yes, we presented budgets, but if you see there's a great deal, or if there's a deal you have to pull back on, you have to save cash, you go ahead and do that. So it's not uncharted territory for us, but it's we don't see any headwinds, knock on wood. We feel that our position as a fast casual restaurant, there's a need for it. There's a need to share food, provide a great product for the customer, for the family, for folks entertained by sports, whatever it might be. I think we're in the right category. So we don't focus on a whole lot about that type of cash position. Again, we're franchisee based, franchisee relationship. But our corporate store division is doing very well, and they continue to add more marketing dollars.
Yeah, got it. Is there a payback period that franchisees should expect to achieve? Thanks, Chase, for that question. Appreciate it.
Our franchisees are looking at 3 years.
3 years. Got it. All right. Well, with Blackstone's investment, sounds like, I mean, you guys got a tiger by the tail, a lot of growth ahead. We've talked about scale, unit level profitability, the playbooks, a leadership team that doesn't let each other down, highly accountable. As you look at solutions, as I founded Lease Cake 7 years ago, is there any advice that you would give us in terms of how we should react to the growth, capabilities, etc.?
For the growth of,
You.
um, I don't have anything off the top of my head.
No, great.
What are you looking for? What do you think?
Well, no, I'm just wondering, based on this standardization of systems that you have within Jersey Mike's, any advice as a leader of, where can we go together and help you further down the road?
Yeah, I truly believe that our success of this company, the success of all your companies, you stay true to who you are.
Yeah.
And you understand what your tolerance for stretching a rubber band could be. And every time we stretch too far, it broke. And I think if we live within inside our parameters that we set for ourselves, the expectations, yeah, I think we're going to have some heavy growth here in a couple of years once we get all the systems. We employ more people out in the field, and we do some things differently. Yeah, I think it's there, but it's a ramping up. It might take a year or two. But we have so many good people in this company that's been with the brand a long time. We need a second career, let's say, another growth.
Good deal.
Back to I'm sorry, I know we're getting short. Back to staying true to yourself and your concept and your franchisees. I always think that that's a win, because they can never argue that you cheated them, and they can never argue that you didn't do the right thing, because we try to treat people the way we want to be treated.
Yeah. Good stuff, Mike. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you the status of the month of giving. Apparently pretty phenomenal results. Any numbers you want to share?
Yes, over $30 million for the month of March. Here in New Jersey, we raised over I think it was $1.3 million for Make-A-Wish Foundation. And some people don't understand, Make-A-Wish Foundation, they spend $10,000 on that child's wish. So we granted 130 wishes for kids throughout the New Jersey, I think in Connecticut area as well, a wish. And you think about the impact of the families and their friends, and the stories just go on, and it's very fascinating that franchisees all volunteer for this day. They're not obligated to do it, but they understand the importance of serving the community that serves you. You have to give back to the community that's given to you, and it's worked out very well. So we're very proud of another $30 million.
Yeah, it's a great motto to live by. Give to give.
Yeah,
30 million, 200 charities.
Yes.
For the month, but on a single day, the entire sales of any given store is donated to charity. Is that right?
Which was about $23 million that one day. And I'll tell you, all the charities, they promoted themselves, they put people in their stores, they teach the community about what they do. We had a family in Penn State one year. The child was fighting leukemia for the 4th time, and that family needed money, and they taught us what the AIDS virus was actually injected into this child to eat the leukemia, and then another blood transfusion, and the child is fine. So yeah, it's stories like that. It's just really, it's just crazy what this day of giving us turned out to be.
Good deal. Well, to wrap up, here's some key takeaways, as I look at my notes, and I'm sure everybody's taking their notes of how to scale up. It's making sure that you slow down to speed up, making sure that you've got a management team that does right with each other, a flat organization or hierarchical organization, but there has to be trust. You have to focus on training. Never underestimate the level of effort to train the franchisees and invest in them. Consider giving them an off-ramp. Maybe they're not going to be successful. I mean, everybody's looking to find these multi-unit operators, but you've got to make sure that they also believe in you and the brand and the leaders. That is the passion towards private equity. How did I do in that wrap up, Mike? Was it
Yeah,
good?
yeah, thumbs up.
Fantastic.
It's,
Well,
it's been an honor, and thank you for allowing me this 1 hour. And if anybody has anything I could help them with, please, you can reach out.
fantastic.
Mike M at jerseymikes.com. If you want a free sub card, you can email me, Mike M at jerseymikes.com.
Wow, look at that. You heard
Yeah.
it here.
Mike M at jerseymikes.com and get yourself a free sub card.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll play back if you haven't gotten that email. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Mike. Really enjoyed it. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.